Hello everyone, I'm French. I have a YouTube channel dedicated to vulgarizing the video game technology, but also other technology like today's video about AI. This will be my first video in English, so please be kind, and if you like the video, please subscribe and put comments. I make those videos to try to explain some complex technology in a simple and accessible way.
The survivors of the nuclear fire called the war Judgment Day.
I originally created the channel to demystify certain buzzwords or to explain certain technologies that are generally misunderstood. Today, we are going to talk about AI, ChatGPT, LLM, in a way you may have never seen before. We are living through a revolution that sparks fantasy, that makes endless philosophical debates, or simply fear what AI can do, especially the new innovation like the large language model, ChatGPT, Llama, and the rest. I want to clarify. I'm not an AI engineer. I'm not an AI researcher. I'm just a video game programmer,
video game engineer,
that have been recently very interested in usage of AI in video games. It's a trend! The perspective I will share with you is not mandatory the one that a lot of people have. But today is not just me talking, it's him.
We're not going to discuss ethics, philosophy, or societal impact here. Instead, we'll try to explain how this works and why, contrary to what many think, it's not truly intelligent. It won't destroy the world.
Humans are better than them.
Of course, we won't delve into the algorithmic or mathematical details of this AI, but we'll try to simply explain the important concepts and why we need to stop fantasizing and being afraid of it. First of all, let's define what the I in artificial intelligence means. Intelligence. It's troubling and especially misleading. We shouldn't understand the word intelligence here as human intelligence, but rather as the I in CIA, like an incredible ability to collect and analyze digital data, to make decisions, make predictions, or automate processes, somewhat like a super efficient secret agent in the digital world. It's also a capacity to perform complex tasks, often better and faster than humans, relying on algorithms and data models. But here, we'll try to talk about ChatGPT, LLMs, and even generative AI. To do this, let's start with the three magic letters of ChatGPT. GPT. Yet these three letters are the key to the functioning of our modern revolution. G for generative, P for pre-trained, T for transformer. I am French, and in French, it needs to be in the other order. Transformer, pre-trained, generative. It's not very clear yet, but it already says a few things. And in French, it's even better. We have the most important element first. This technology is a pillar of the AI revolution, influencing various applications available to the general public for the past few months. No, no, no! It's not related to the movie at all. Transformers, introduced by Google researchers in 2017, are not giant robots but a revolution in the field of artificial intelligence. Their research paper was titled, "Attention is all you need." And no, it doesn't mean pay attention, there's danger, but really attention is all you need. Let's take a closer look. Google is much more than a search engine or YouTube, where you watch this video. It's also a multitude of services like Google Maps, which even inspired a Netflix series, even though it's a completely fictional story. But in our case, what interests us is Google Translate. Originally, Google researchers sought to develop an efficient way to translate text from one language to another. The idea was to recognize the original language and translate it into the requested language. And it works better and better, right? They base their research on the principle that each language has its own sentence structure, words that are more used or more important than others, and that the relationship between words is crucial. This includes grammar, vocabulary, synonyms, etc. But the transformer does this automatically, thanks to training on texts in a given language in the form of statistics and math. We could say it's a bit like a human translator, trying to understand the meaning of a sentence in one language to retranscribe it in another, right? So far, nothing extraordinary, except that now we have a computer capable of transforming a text in a language it can understand, and generating another text in a different language from that understanding. Where it gets interesting is in how the computer processes the text. Each piece of text, whether a word, a part of a word, or even punctuation, is transformed into what is called a token. These tokens are like labels or puzzle pieces, each carrying a small part of the information. These tokens are then converted into numerical vectors, a mathematical form that the computer can understand. Imagine that each word, each idea, each nuance of language is transformed into a sequence of numbers. This allows the computer to process nuances, context, grammar in a much more sophisticated way than simple word-for-word translation. And that's where the magic happens. The computer can take these numerical vectors, these tokens, and retranslate them into words and sentences in another language. It's a sort of double translation, first from text to math, then from math to another text. Impressive, right? So, yes, these tokens are not a language per se, but rather a way for machines to decode and recreate human language using mathematical calculations. A fascinating process at the heart of the translation and understanding capabilities of transformer-type models. So sure, it's not related to Optimus Prime or Bumblebee, but in a way, these transformers are just as impressive. They change the way we communicate, access information, and even learn languages. And all this thanks to a bit of math and a lot of human ingenuity. Now let's look at the other two letters of GPT, but in the French order, so TPG. This will help us better understand how ChatGPT works. Let's continue with the P for pre-trained. Before being made available to the public, ChatGPT was stuffed with knowledge. It was trained on a colossal amount of texts, learning language, its nuances, and a multitude of general information. It's a bit like if this program had read an entire library of books, absorbing the different ways words and sentences are used. This pre-training forms the solid foundation on which ChatGPT builds its responses. In addition to transforming text into tokens, another fascinating aspect of ChatGPT is its ability to navigate an immense multidimensional database. Each token is represented in a space of hundreds or even thousands of dimensions, allowing the model to grasp complex nuances and subtle relationships between words. This multidimensional representation is what gives ChatGPT its ability to understand and generate relevant responses in various contexts. It's a bit like having a gigantic mental map, where each data point is linked to others in many dimensions, forming a dense network of interconnected knowledge. Next, the G for generative. This feature allows ChatGPT not only to understand and analyze text, but also to create it. Like a painter who doesn't just copy reality, but also creates new works, ChatGPT can write original texts, stories, and even generate creative responses to questions. It's a capacity for creation, invention, based on the vast learning it has received, and only on that. It's not copying, but a blend of all the knowledge it has accumulated during its training. By combining these three elements, a generative capacity, GE, comprehensive pre-training, P, and the transformer architecture, T, we get a remarkable AI tool. ChatGPT can engage in dialogue, compose texts, and react in a relevant and often very human way. It's this fusion of components that makes ChatGPT such an impressive tool, opening new avenues for interaction with technologies, content creation, and even learning. It's a window to a future where machines don't just understand language, but interact with us in meaningful and useful ways. And all this, thanks to an ingenious combination of mathematics, technology, and of course, the human spirit. A point often mentioned about these AI models like ChatGPT deserves clarification. Some people think it's impossible to explain how they work. In reality, the basic principle is understandable. But precisely following how ChatGPT generates its responses is extremely complex due to the astronomical amount of calculations and data involved. It's a bit like trying to follow every drop of water in a torrent. We understand the general flow, but following each individual drop is another story. This shows the incredible power of AI while highlighting our limits in dissecting every detail of its operation. So, yes, we are still far from autonomous robots like in science fiction movies. But in a way, we have created something just as fascinating. A machine that can speak and think, in quotes, in a way that is familiar to us because it's copied from us, and that opens up a whole new world of possibilities. When we talk about thinking, but how does it guess what it should say or write? Well, that's where things get really interesting. When ChatGPT receives input, like a question or the beginning of a sentence, it uses everything it has learned to guess the most likely continuation. It's still math. Probabilities. It's a bit like the text prediction function on your mobile phone. You know, when you start typing something, and the phone suggests the next word, it relies on the words you often type and what it thinks you're going to say next. ChatGPT does something similar, but in a much more sophisticated way. It doesn't just look at the previous few words, but considers the entire context of what you've said or written. It analyzes the relationships between words, the sentence structure, and uses this understanding to guess what would be the most logical or natural thing to say next. It's an educated guess, not mere chance, based on the huge amounts of texts it has analyzed during its training. However, to ensure that the responses are not always the same, a notion of randomness is introduced in the selection of data and in the way the result is generated. This is what makes ChatGPT such an impressive tool, opening new avenues for interaction with technologies, content creation, and even learning. It's a window to a future where machines don't just understand language, but interact with us in meaningful and useful ways. But, in fact, what makes the strength and magic of ChatGPT is not just that. If we look at things from another angle, ChatGPT is somewhat like an automaton of human knowledge, communicating with a text or voice user experience with humans via natural language. The knowledge this automaton has is based on human knowledge. It can quickly perform certain actions, like summarizing or creating text, explaining complex knowledge, but it can't really reason on its own outside of this knowledge, at least for now, as it might come one day, but only up to a certain point. One of the things that prove this the most, when it doesn't have the requested information in its training or can't make a probabilistic deduction from its training, it hallucinates, it tells nonsense. It invents things that don't exist, which mathematically are probably plausible, but not necessarily real. This means we can't trust it 100%. Moreover, we're talking about math here. Math always gives the same result from a calculation. But in the case of ChatGPT, even if its answers are also based on math, on statistical calculations, it doesn't necessarily give the same result even if you ask the same question. Because as we said before, a bit of randomness is added to the probability calculations, which slightly changes the response, the content, or the form each time for the same question. Precisely, it's very interesting to compare human reactions to ChatGPT with the reactions humans had to the first text adventure games released on the first personal computers. These text adventures, like Zork, Eureka, or The Hobbit, were very limited but could have very advanced syntax analyzers, which comes back to the idea of transformers, giving the user the impression that anything was possible, that you could ask the computer anything, that you could even insult it and it would respond, while in reality, it was very limited. The imagination did the rest, almost as well, if not better, in some cases in terms of personal experience, as some hyper-realistic games that exist today on modern computers or consoles. ChatGPT can also influence the imagination, an aspect that is more related to the human than to ChatGPT itself. In reality, the real potential danger of artificial intelligence in general, and ChatGPT in particular, does not lie in the AI itself, but in how humans choose to use it. Although ChatGPT remains a tool, there is a risk that humans will place too much trust in it or use it inappropriately, without fully understanding its limitations, as can happen with any other tool in reality. Because yes, it remains a tool. After exploring the world of Transformers and ChatGPT, it's fascinating to see how these concepts are also revolutionizing image creation. Imagine a world where not only words, but also images are born from a symphony of mathematical calculations and artificial intelligence. Models like Dalle-e, Stable Diffusion, or Midjourney, although employing techniques distinct from Transformers, nevertheless draw inspiration from their innovative approach to processing and generating complex data, pushing the boundaries of imagination, transforming textual descriptions into breathtaking visual landscapes. It's like these models are painting pictures from our words, interpreting our dreams and thoughts to materialize them into images. In this adventure, diffusion models play a key role. They start with noise, a blank canvas of possibilities, and gradually, through a process of refinement, this canvas takes shape. It's a bit like watching an artist paint, adding layer by layer until the image emerges in all its splendor. But the real magic lies in how these systems understand what the user is asking for. Thanks to the contribution of transformer-type models, they can grasp the essence of a textual request, interpret the nuances of our language, and transform these words into a visual that matches the user's intent. It's a harmony between linguistic understanding and visual creation, a bridge between text and image. We are thus witnessing a distant but related extension of transformer models, from text creation to image creation, from the poetry of words to that of visuals. These technologies open doors to worlds where art and technology merge, where our words and writings can come to life in the form of images. Finally, imagine the future potential. These technologies could one day create not only static images, but also animate entire worlds in 3 dimensions or compose complex soundtracks. We are on the threshold of an era where our creativity is amplified by artificial intelligence, transforming our wildest ideas into visual and auditory realities. In short, transformers and their descendants in the world of image and sound creation are not just tools. They are companions of our imagination, catalysts of our creative expression. They invite us to rethink the limits of art, storytelling, and perhaps even our own perception of reality. And to end on a lighter note, transformers are transforming us. Who would have thought that one day our words and thoughts could come to life in so many different forms, transformed by artificial intelligence? Reflecting on the monumental impact of transformers and AI in general, it is crucial to keep in mind that despite their spectacular advancement, these technologies remain tools. They have no consciousness, and personally, I doubt they will ever acquire one. But as Rabelais suggested,
science without conscience is but the ruin of the soul.
Reminding us that AI as a product of science, inevitably reflects the intentions and values of those who develop and use it, emphasizing our collective responsibility in its ethical and conscious use for the benefit of humanity. A fundamental but often underestimated aspect of AI models is the quality and provenance of their training data. This data determines the accuracy and ethics of AI responses, and their responsible management is crucial to avoid biases and respect privacy and copyright. AI, in all its generative splendor, can surpass humans in certain domains. Just like an excavator digs more efficiently than several people. But it cannot replace human essence or act of its own will. This reminds us of another moment in the history of innovation. In the early 20th century, aviation was seen by some as a far-fetched idea. The idea of building a giant bird seemed ridiculous. Yet the Wright brothers proved there were other ways to fly than by flapping wings. Similarly, if there is intelligence in AI, it will likely be in a different form from ours. Perhaps more collective, stronger in some aspects and weaker in others. Just as no plane can land on a branch but can transport hundreds of passengers, AI has its own unique strengths and limits. This perspective makes us realize that we might be fighting the wrong battle by not recognizing how, like aviation that revolutionized transportation, AI could revolutionize our understanding and use of intelligence. But there is always a risk that fear and misunderstanding of AI could be manipulated for unscrupulous purposes. We are going through a period of intense innovation, similar to those that have marked the history of humanity. Yes, AI will replace some jobs, but as Alain Lavoisier said,
nothing is lost, everything is transformed.
AI is a tool, a means, not an end in itself. Portraitists had to reinvent themselves with the advent of photography, and today, everyone carries a camera in their pocket.
We should neither blindly fear AI or worship it as a panacea. It is formidable, but it's also a mirror of our own limit, our creativity and our responsibility. The future of AI will depend on how we choose to use, frame, and above all, understand it. In this journey into the unknown, our greatest strength lies in your humanity, in our ability to give a meaning and direction to those tools that day by day transform our world.
I'll be back.